How the police targeted an innocent man, the Colin Stagg story in 40 minutes on BBC One Scotland. First, with some strong language, we look back at a year that found boxer Scott Harrison on the ropes.
My name is Craig Collinson. In December 2007, I began filming a documentary about the former world champion boxer Scott Harrison and his comeback to the ring after a 2-year absence. I'd hoped to make a film charting the greatest comeback in Scottish sporting history, but instead, over the course of the next year, I would watch a fighting machine gradually self-destruct.
They want me to just go and retire somewhere. That's basically what they want me to do. I mean, it's an absolute, it's turned into a pure fucking circus. It's a total joke.
This is the inside story of Scott Harrison's attempted return to professional boxing. It's a tale full of twists and turns. One that ultimately would see Scott Harrison not back in the ring, but behind bars. It's December 2007, and I first meet Scott Harrison as he officially announces to the press that he will return to the ring.
This is Scott Harrison, official comeback. So, mark my words.
I'm not a boxing expert, but like most people, I know that Scott is Scotland's most successful boxer, a 2-time world title holder, but that problems with alcohol, drugs and the law stalled his career, just as he was on the verge of becoming one of the sport's all-time greats. I also know there must be a person behind all the tabloid headlines, and I want to find out who that is. My first day's filming is at the start of a 10-week training schedule for a warm-up fight planned in March. I read that Scott can be temperamental, but he's keen to get across that his past is behind him and that he's totally committed to getting his title back.
I'm looking for my 3rd world title. I mean, everybody knows what I've been through since the past 2 years. I've not fought in about 2 years, so this is me going to... I'll definitely win the world title again. I think a lot of people forget, you know, the 6,000 fans that used to turn up and support me. I think a lot of people actually forget all the genuine world title fights I used to put on. When you see me right now, right? You see right now, you see me day one. This is going to be a few months, this documentary. So you'll see me in 10 weeks' time. Then you can see the difference for yourself. I mean, it's like night and day, basically. I mean, I'm dropping 2 stone in weight. The way you see me punching the bags today is going to be totally different than it's going to be like 10 weeks' time. You've got to see a pure animal.
Scott's certainly taking his training seriously. 6 days a week, he's up at dawn for a 5-mile uphill run, followed by a 2-hour session in the gym, and then a further workout at night. Scott's dad, Peter, who coached his son to the world title, is back training him again and making sure he stays on course.
In Scott's mind, I know, like I say, he's preparing for a fight. He's getting his life back in order again. He's getting his fight. I mean, all he talks about is a 3rd world title. You know, that's all he's wanting. That's a 3rd world title.
But as Scott gets into the rhythm of this grueling regime, I discover there might be a problem. Scott doesn't actually have a licence to box. He had it suspended a year ago by the Boxing Board of Control for cancelling a fight at the last minute. Without a boxing licence, Scott can't legally step back into the ring.
Frozen, cold again, freezing.
But he's begun training for a fight in the hope that it might be reinstated before March, and seems optimistic that it's just a formality.
Oh, it depends on the board, really, doesn't it? It all depends if the board are going to play the game. You know what I mean? Gives your licence back. Because
yeah, chance.
When do you expect to hear? When do you think?
Well, I'm expecting a letter through the door today. Hopefully tell me that I should attend a meeting in the next month. But I don't know, the postman's not turned up yet, so I need to wait and see. A couple of days will tell. That's why I'm going up here, early bells, and going to run up this hill here. and get back to fighting in March. Basically what I'm trying to do is get my life back on track. I mean, I'm training hard and I've got my body fit.
That's 3 miles, Scott.
Can't I just wipe you all together and put a black mark through and just say, that's Scott Harrison, he's not getting a licence back again. If you do something wrong, you've got to get another chance, isn't it?
Scott seems genuinely focused to me and obviously thinks he's putting in the effort to make up for the mistakes he's made. But I'm surprised to learn that he's a regular churchgoer and that religious faith is a driving force in his life.
I go to the chapel on a Sunday, I say my prayers, and that's up to me. End of the day, each to their own, know what I mean? If I want to go to the chapel on a Sunday, I'll go to the chapel on a Sunday, you know?
Does it give you focus?
Definitely, definitely. Gives you more confidence as well, once you get in there to fight. I believe in him.
Although he keeps it very much to himself, I can see a very different Scott Harrison to the fighting machine I'd seen in the ring.
You're definitely fitter than you've been for a while now, aren't you? You've had a long, hard road and he's learned a lot about himself and about other people and what to do with himself. Well, the church has always been willing to welcome back someone who's made a fool of himself, who's going to repent and come back, and I think this is it. You've always been faithful to the church. If you get this...
I'll get the licence back, that's me, I'm off and running.
You will.
Aye.
We'll all be off and running.
That's it.
Yeah.
Finding out about Scott's religious convictions like this, I realise that there is more to him than just Harrison, the troubled ex-champ. But boxing is pretty much all he talks about, and as I discover looking into his past, all he knows. Boxing has been a part of Scott's life for as long as he can remember. His grandfather boxed for the British Navy. His uncles were boxers. And his dad was a Scottish champion who went on to become a successful coach. As his father proudly recalls, boxing is in Scott's blood.
Scott was actually 4-year-old, and Scott walks over to a group of 5 or 6 boys, and the boy who is bullying everybody in the street walks up to Scott and goes like that. That was the first thing he done to him, and Scott just hit him a right hand right on his chin. He said, I want to take up the boxing. So I said, if you've got to take it up, you have to be really serious about it.
From the age of 15, Scott devoted his life to boxing.
That was the first amateur fight I had. I went in there and stalked him 2 rounds, covered in blood. I must have broke his nose or something, I don't know, but that's when I knew I was good at it. I could feel the power I had in him.
Scott told me later that as a teenager he'd missed birthday parties and hanging out with friends so that he could keep training. And it paid off. By his early 20s, he was the British and Commonwealth champion, and the world title was within his grasp.
That was a huge step up, me fighting for the world title. Shakon, who I was fighting, he was a big left hooker. He threw big left hooks. He was small, he'd come for the crouch and come up with the big left hooks. He'd knock everybody out with this left hook.
So he was the guy that we get told, avoid Shakon, don't fight Shakon.
Harrison starts to let the leather fly again.
But sometimes we're forced into things, and that was the chance that Scott had for a world title fight. So he weighed up the chances and he took it, and he won it.
And the first ever featherweight champion from Scotland.
It was obvious to me that he'd been driven, and Scott's talent took him to the top of the world at just 25 years old. Turning world champ coincided with him becoming a dad, and listening to him talk about it, it was clear that fatherhood had intensified his focus still further. 5 years on, and he was still hungry for success.
Once you get kids, it's not really all about yourself. It's about fighting for your family. Your kids, I've got 2 kids, a wee boy, a 6-year-old, a wee lass, a 2-year-old as well. So basically the money I make will basically be going to them in their future.
But in boxing terms, there's a time limit to this future that Scott is talking about. He is 30 years old, getting to be past his prime as a boxer. He's been out of the ring for 2 years. It's not going to be as easy for him to get into shape as it had been before. He explains to me that to return to the ring, he has to lose nearly 2 stones in weight, and readily admits that, for a man in his 30s, it's going to be hell.
I'm sweating maybe 8 pounds in one training session. You times that with 3, your morning training session after in at night, I'm losing a stone a day, but putting a stone back on with fluids. So you think how much draining your body goes through with it.
But helping Scott go through this demanding physical transformation is Dr. Real McCoy of Glasgow University's Biomedical and Life Sciences faculty. I filmed the crucial series of tests and checkups Scott has to go through to assess if his body can still take the strain.
Scott, to lose weight, has to train 2 or 3 times a day, but there's no point in him training so hard 2 or 3 times a day that he's killing himself. We want to try and do the minimum he can to lose weight.
What Scott wants to hear is that he can still be as fit at 30 as he was at 25.
There's no reason why you can't be as fit as you were. There's no reason...
Or even fitter.
Or even fitter, that's what I was going to say.
It depends on your lifestyle as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
if you're living better, you're going to get fitter, aren't you?
And you're going to live better, aren't you?
Live better.
Do these things. The weight you're at just now, the hydration levels you're at just now, super featherweight, should be no problem to you.
The checkup with Dr. McFarlane is also an opportunity to test Scott's punching power and a chance for me to get an idea of what it would be like to be hit by this man.
As I said earlier, so what we've got here is just a voltage output from the accelerometer. We're getting near to about 4 volts just coming with the left hand. Now that doesn't mean anything, 4 volts, what does that really mean? And roughly we're talking about 4 15-stone men jumping on your chin. Quite a lot of force, and that's left hand, and that's him not really trying very hard.
Scott can clearly still hit, and hit hard. But with just 7 weeks to go to his first warm-up fight, and still a lot of work needed to get his fitness, speed and weight where they need to be, he's going to have to move things up a gear. And this means a trip to his favourite training ground up in the Scottish Highlands.
No, you either want to be a professional fighter and be the best fighter that you can be, or you want to just play at it. What you're doing is just, you're training basically all day. You're getting your head down about 11 o'clock at night, and you're just waking up the next morning and going back to training again. So you're basically, for the next 2 months, you've got to live like a monk to be a champion.
I've been filming with Scott for a month now, and I don't know whether it's because he's more comfortable with the camera or just getting out of Glasgow, but Scott is becoming more relaxed and open with me. For the first time, I'm beginning to see behind the PR front that Scott and his dad have been careful to maintain.
Scott actually thinks it's we elves that come in during the middle of the night and clean all the dishes. I mean, it's like that I don't know the fairy tale, it was about the cobbler, how all the shoes used to be mended in the middle of the night, and this guy just thought that they're mended with magic. Scott thinks it's the same with dishes.
End of the day, I'm not a cleaner, so I leave it up to the cleaner's job, you know what I mean? Whoever the cleaner may be, I'm not saying my dad's a cleaner or anything like that, no. I'm saying the cleaner, whoever it may be, I don't know. But I've got to train, I've not got time to do the cleaning and things like that. You're laughing at. In boxing, you've got your structure. So for the past 2 years, I've known my structure. And basically, just come to terms how we deal with life if you know what you're boxing. I found that hard to do. I was basically on my own, having to basically get back in the real world. Basically, I found that hard, to be honest with you, not being world champion.
So yeah, Scott, that's fast. Good man.
3 times world champion.
That's it.
Nearly world champion of the planet's going to be running halls like that.
That's it.
Not in Scotland.
That's it.
Although what I've seen so far makes me believe that Scott really can become a world champion again, at the back of my mind is the fact that he still hasn't heard anything about his boxing licence and that there's no warm-up fight actually arranged. But Scott and his dad are going through the motions of a pre-fight schedule, as if all this will fall into place.
Once you start something, you've got to finish it. You know, it's a case of, he's always been like that. Even when he was young at school, like he was just the same. He get into trouble with a lot of teachers in school because his way was always the best way.
Scott's self-belief has made him the greatest boxer to ever come out of Scotland. And I want to know more about his career as a world champion. As he recalls the glories of the past, he suddenly comes alive, and I glimpse the true champion that Scott Harrison once was. Between 2002 and 2004, Scott defended, lost, and then regained his title in spectacular fashion.
There is Medina.
If you watch the fight again, I'm practically running in the middle of the ring.
In winning a world title twice, Scott achieved something that no Scottish boxer had done before or since.
I felt invincible. I didn't think anybody in the planet could beat me.
And he's made history, the first Scot ever to regain a world championship.
Scott Harrison fought 11 world title contests in 3 years, breaking the Scottish record for successful defences. Listening to him talk about all these fights makes me realise that the more he fought, the more the effort started to take its toll.
So you need to look at it this way, right? So I'll be training for a fight for maybe 2 months, 8 to 9 weeks, right? So once you get there, you train 3 times a day, you know, really punish your body. Once you get there and all the crowds there, and all the fans and all that, and you've already done all the press coverage and all that, you get to the fight, you win the fight, you put on a brilliant performance, you know what I mean? Then maybe 3 years later, I can feel shite, basically.
Do you think you took being world champion for granted?
I think after a while I did. To be honest with you, I think I did take it for granted, aye. I think it's only when you're no world champion, you say to yourself, oh, what was it like when I was world champion? You know, that I think I did take it for granted, to be honest with you.
The one fight that Scott avoids describing to me is his 9th World Championship contest in January 2005 that ended in a contentious draw. He was booed by the crowd and the sporting press started to turn on him. At the same time, stories began to emerge that Scott was drinking heavily and getting involved in violent confrontations outside the ring. He seemed to me like a professional fighter who was beginning to lose the self-control and discipline that had made him a champion.
I'd walk into a pub, all the eyes are on me, see what I'm going to do. At the end of the day as well, I mean, I didn't make it any easier for myself, you know. Maybe going up to different pubs or maybe drinking, maybe getting to jail.
In May 2006, Scott was charged with resisting arrest in a bar and assaulting a policeman. Shortly after, he pulled out of a scheduled title defence fight and booked himself into the Priory Clinic for alcohol-related problems.
I had to get into the Priory just to try and get my act together, but I went from one Priory to another Priory. I went down London as well. I was in rehab in London. Went to Ireland. So in the space of a couple of years, I've been in about 3 different rehabs. For my dad to see me when I was 15, 16, fighting for, had my first amateur fight, and saying, "Aye, son, you hopefully get to the Olympics one day," to fighting for your first and second world title and defending it 10 times. Thinking after rails, must have been an absolute nightmare because my father being my father and being my trainer as well. It was twice as hard for him. Tell you one thing, see who's going to be there through thick and thin. It's going to be your family. Your family will always be there. Right or wrong what you do, they'll always be there.
It's nearly halfway through Scott's training schedule, and I'm beginning to see how badly he needs to make this work. But there is still no mention of his boxing licence. and I press him again about news from the boxing board.
Just look, mate, you see it coming.
The response I get comes as a complete surprise. Scott reveals that he has a pending court case for a breach of the peace, resisting arrest and police assault charge dating back to May 2006. The boxing board has taken the view that until this case is resolved, Scott will not be allowed to step into a professional boxing ring. Despite having never mentioned this before, Scott assures me that everything will be okay.
Everything I was accused of was about 2 years ago. You know what I mean? It was 2 years ago, it was a long time away. When I started getting off the rails a bit. I got a letter from the board today, and they wanted to know what I was getting charged with. I mean, you need to remember, I've been trying to get my licence back for the best part of 2 years. So for me to wait to just after February, when I know it's a breach of the peace charge, and there was no violence or anything like that, no, I was accused of. So, I mean, I have no worries. I mean, I'm sure the boxing board of control will do the right thing and give me my boxing licence back.
But from this moment on, the film I'm making is about to go in a dramatically different direction. It's early February, and Scott's back in Glasgow for his court appearance. He intends to plead guilty to charges of a breach of the peace and resisting arrest, but not to assaulting a policeman, and the case is going to trial.
I think I was a different guy back then to what I'm now. I'm older, wiser, I've grown up a good bit as well. And I suppose I've learned from my mistakes as well. So if you don't learn, you're a fool, basically, aren't you? So I'm just hoping the courts are lenient today.
In court, I listened to Scott's lawyer argue that his client had gone off the rails due to the pressures of his sport. The sheriff tells him that he should be ashamed of himself and that he'll only find salvation if he stays off the drink. Scott gets 200 hours community service for a breach of the peace and resisting arrest, but crucially is found not guilty of police assault. Cocky and defiant at the result, he can't resist having a go at the media waiting outside the court for him.
So do you leave court today in perhaps a better frame of mind than you entered court this morning? Do you feel that you're now on your way?
Oh, definitely. It's a not guilty verdict, innit? So I'm just hoping the press and the media started to give me a break and started printing the truth about Scott Harrison. You know what I mean? And not just the lies all the time. Hell's your only Scottish world champion. And he's still writing lies about me. So maybe this time he could give us a break. So, end of the day, we'll leave it at that, innit? Cheers. Obviously, I'm ashamed of the past 2 years and all the drinking that was involved and all that, and basically been stripped of my world title. End of the day, I've regrouped, and I've come back. So I'm like 2008 started well. I got a not guilty there, so I'm buzzing, feeling good.
Like Scott, I'm sure the boxing board will give him his licence back now. But just as I think the way is clear for him to get back into the ring, another problem that Scott has kept to himself catches up with us. It's a few days after his appearance at Glasgow Sheriff Court, and Scott is becoming increasingly difficult to get hold of. But I finally learnt from his dad that he faces another court case, this time in Spain, for a double charge of assault. According to the national press, who've picked up on the story, if he's found guilty over there, he could be locked up for 10 years. This unexpected turn of events dates back to the autumn of 2006. Out of rehab, Scott needed to get back into the boxing ring if he was going to keep his title. He decamped to Spain to prepare for another fight and took his uncle Jack with him, who worked with Scott as an assistant coach. But they'd only been out there 3 or 4 weeks when he and his uncle got themselves into serious trouble. Following an incident in which Scott crashed his car, they were accused of attacking the driver of another vehicle and then assaulting a Spanish policeman who'd attempted to intervene. When I finally catch up with Scott, he's reluctant to go into detail about what happened that night. Nobody really knows what happened, and you've got all these conflicting newspaper
reports about what went on.
I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just thinking about it. I was going to start to talk about what happened there, but I've got a trial coming up in April.
Okay.
And I can't talk about it. Yeah.
What do you feel you can talk about in terms of what you were experiencing and what you were going through?
I'm not going to tell it, no.
Okay. We can keep it brief. Yeah. And just okay.
I'm not going to tell you what happened until after the trial. It's going to be fucking suicidal for me to tell it.
Sure.
Whatever did happen that night in Spain resulted in Scott being locked up in a maximum security prison.
They says I was going to Alarin de la Torre maximum security jail. I'm saying, for what basically? For what? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so eventually we got there and I've said to my uncle, I said, we're in about 3 days, 5 days, time the lawyer gets through and all that. So we get there and he gets to a week, still not 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then you're starting to think, I'm going to be in trouble here trying to make this wait.
After 6 weeks in jail, Scott was finally released, but he still had a World Championship fight lined up, one that he couldn't afford to cancel given that he was on a last chance to keep his title.
I got in bail with the promise I was going to return back, so it was a brilliant moment actually eventually leaving. All right, it was only 6 weeks, but it was a long 6 weeks when you've got a world title fight, came up 3 weeks after that, and trying to train, so that 6 weeks was like 6 months.
But 6 weeks of prison diet had put him nearly a stone overweight, and with less than 3 weeks to go until his contest, he couldn't shed the pounds in time. He pulled out of the fight, vacated his title, and then his boxing licence was suspended. Days later, he was arrested in the centre of Glasgow and found to be in possession of diazepam. By mid-2007, he was separated from the mother of his children and had been declared bankrupt. His world had completely fallen apart. It's March 2008, a year on from what Scott Harrison must have thought was the lowest point of his life. I've been filming with him for 2 months now, documenting what he and I both thought would be his glorious comeback. But I'm now not convinced that his past is truly behind him. Another couple of weeks have passed, and I still can't get hold of Scott. He's due in Spain for his trial in a week, and I know his training has gone off the boil. Eventually he calls, and I arrange to meet at his house, hoping to get an idea of how his comeback has been affected. But on arrival, he won't let me in. Instead, Scott wants to meet at his church, but then decides he doesn't want to talk to me at all. Scott's Spanish court case has caused a frenzy of tabloid speculation about both him and his Uncle Jack. Suggestions that he's facing 10 years in jail has clearly angered him. I feel as if he's now as suspicious of me as he is the press, and I'm disappointed that the trust I thought I'd established seems to have evaporated. But the reality is that, like me, Scott knows the consequences of his past behaviour are overshadowing his comeback. When he does agree to film again, it's to voice his suspicions that the boxing board are now waiting for the outcome of the court case in Spain before making a decision about his licence.
I think they're just moving the goalposts, and every month it just seems to be something else. I mean, I'd respect them more if they says, no, Scott, you're not getting your licence back. I would actually respect them more. But no, just to basically piss me right off, and it's basically it's fucking up my career, to be honest with you.
Have you been tempted to call it a day?
No, because that's what they want me to do. That's what the British Boxing Board of Control want me to do. They want me to just go and retire somewhere. That's basically what they want me to do. It's obvious, isn't it? How do you think I would feel when I'm about 70 and I've retired in my heyday when I was 28, 29, 30, and I've retired and I've got had a lot of good fights left in me. I couldn't live with myself if I couldn't finish off my career. I mean, it's a fantastic career up to date. Pretty much the best record in Scotland. Best boxer Scotland's ever had. Just pretty much annoyed in it, but it's It's just the way it is, isn't it? It's just what happens.
If Scott's found not guilty in Spain, then his comeback might get back on track. It seems that I'm back in his confidence, and he agrees to let me come with him to Spain.
Cabin crew, that's 10 minutes to landing now. 10 minutes.
It's early April, and we arrive in Malaga the day before Scott's court case. His uncle Jack, who's also charged with a double assault, is avoiding the trial and any potential sentence. I've not seen Scott for a while, and I'm struck by how changed he is. All the optimism and confidence is gone, and only now does he admit how serious things are.
I could have stayed back home, but they wouldn't have given me the licence back, so I have to come out here, face the music, and get it done one way or another. My full career hinges on getting through this case tomorrow. So hopefully all goes well. But to be honest with you, I'm not too confident about how it's going to go tomorrow. I mean, it's some of the things have been said here, what I've meant to have done. If it goes wrong tomorrow, I'll not be boxing again. Let's put it that way. My whole career will be ruined.
It's the morning of the court case, and more details about what Scott's been charged with have filtered through via his Spanish lawyer. It's only about half an hour before the trial is due to begin, and I think it's the first time it's occurred to him that he might be about to lose his freedom.
They'll try to give me 3 years for the police assault. Try to give me 3 years for that, so then a year and a half for this and a year and a half for that. So adds up to about maybe 5 years. Yeah.
I've never seen him so beaten. But only minutes before Scott's court case is about to start, the judge due to preside over the trial calls off sick, and the case is postponed until 2009.
It's a relief, and it isn't a relief. I was expecting it to be done today. I've been geared up for this trial for a while now, and I think everybody has been. To turn up today and the judges know well, it's a bit of a sickener, isn't it? A bit of a sickener, but if it's put after next year, means the Boxing Board of Control should be getting his the licence back. So that means I can get back working again, back to my profession as being a professional fighter, isn't it?
Despite the bravado, I think Scott knows that with his case in Spain unresolved, his boxing career is also on hold. It turns out to be far worse than that. It's a month later, and Scott has stopped answering his phone entirely. A newspaper has reported that he's been admitted to hospital with a knife wound to his hand so serious that he needs surgery. I suspect that he's started drinking again, but only now do I realise how bad it might be. He calls the day the Boxing Board of Control finally tell him they won't reinstate his licence to box, and that his ban will remain in place. I meet him at his Cambuslang home and want to know what's happened with his hand.
Well, we were harmed there. But I was cooking my dinner, right, holding an onion, and I sliced my holding an onion, right through with a knife, right through the onion.
Were you sure was it?
No, it's healing up now.
It's alright.
It's healing up now. But that's what happened there. But you know the way the press try and betray things again.
Whatever Scott's done to his hand has killed off his comeback indefinitely. However, the Boxing Board's refusing to reinstate Scott's licence is the final nail in the coffin.
It was all to do with court cases and bringing a game into disrepute and all that. That's how I got banned. Some of the things I said, aye, fair enough. I was out of order. Basically, I was just putting my hands on. So I was going through a lot of troubles at the time. So, I mean, I'm a human being. No, I'm not some sort of robot. Know what I mean? But they've obviously made their mind up. I mean, they want me to retire. But There's no chance I'm going to let them beat me, tell you that. As I train every day. So that to me isn't going to happen for else. That to me is training every day. I mean, I says I'll keep training until I get my licence back. I'll keep myself fit, keep my body fit. I mean, what they're saying about making half for else, that's all on the papers. That's all paper talk, again. So I've got to keep my body strong, keep my mind strong, until I get my licence back.
I can't help feeling that Scott's deluding himself, and I'm concerned about where he goes from here. But for Scott, things are about to take a disastrous turn. A few days after I last saw him, his uncle, who'd been facing the same charges in Spain, took his own life. On having the news broken to him, Scott began drinking heavily, attacked his girlfriend, and assaulted a policeman called to the scene. He was remanded in custody, but released after a month, only to be arrested again for drink driving. In September 2008, Scott Harrison began a 10-month jail sentence in Barlinnie. I was deeply disappointed in Scott. Yes, frustration with the British Boxing Board, coupled with a personal tragedy, had caused him to self-destruct. But I think that Scott Harrison, the boxer who trained all his adult life to be a world-class fighter, couldn't admit that he still had personal problems to overcome. That would have been to show a weakness. But Scott's continued inability to control his aggression isn't something I can attribute to the nature of his sport, and his unwillingness to acknowledge his own demons had destroyed his comeback. I still needed answers, and nearly a year to the day after I first began filming with Scott, I caught up with his father Peter at the gym.
The things that happened to Scott, it tripped him over the edge at that time with his uncle dying. A lot of people couldn't handle it. I mean, the trouble in Spain, he's made a few mistakes over here, and it's contributed to affecting the way his life is, isn't it?
Is that why he went back to drinking?
I could never explain the reason why Scott did rely on drink. I mean, maybe probably Scott doesn't even know. Maybe it's a complicated thing. Like I said, using the alcohol as a crutch, you know. Sure, Scott knows the problems it's caused him, and when he tries to learn from them, he'll have learned from the things that led him to Barlinnie. I still think it'll be a happy ending. I think, I hope and pray that Scott's got to get his licence back. That'll put, and then he can get his career back on track again. I'm sure that's what's got to happen.